Have you ever felt ignored? As if your words couldn't find an open heart to listen? And when you try to listen, do you feel like something gets lost along the way? As if the connection you once had is now distant? Over time, we realize that listening and being heard with love is one of the greatest gifts we can give and receive. Today, I want to invite you. Let's walk together on a path of reconnection. Let's rediscover the power of conversations that soothe, that embrace, that heal. In this video, you'll learn how to turn your listening into an act of tenderness, and how to make sure your voice is met with respect, warmth, and presence. Even if the world has grown louder, even if time has brought silence, it's still possible to build bridges with simple words and open hearts. Stay with me until the end, and I promise, you'll remember what truly unites us as human beings. Have you ever noticed how some conversations can deeply calm us, while others leave us even more confused or hurt? Maybe this has happened to you on a quiet afternoon. You tried to share something important with a family member, maybe a child, a grandchild. But halfway through, you realized they were no longer really there. They were looking at their phone or thinking about something else. You felt your words leaving your lips, only to hit an invisible wall. They weren't received, they found no home. And in that moment, even surrounded by people, you felt alone. This is where we begin to understand what empathetic communication is. It's not just about speaking, nor just about listening with our ears. Empathetic communication is a profound act of humanity. It's the act of stepping into someone else's shoes, even if just for a few minutes, and feeling alongside them. It's when we listen not just to the words, but to what lies beneath them, the emotion, the need, the silence that often speaks louder than sound. Unlike ordinary listening, the kind we do just to respond or give our opinion, empathetic listening is in no hurry. It's not concerned with fixing, correcting, or judging. It simply welcomes. It is present. And that, my friend, makes all the difference. Because when someone listens to us with true empathy, we feel seen, as if our soul is being gently held. I remember a true story about a woman named Donna Claris. She was over 70, and every week her son would visit her. But instead of talking kindly, he was always in a rush, talking about work problems, checking the clock. One day, she prepared coffee and cake. They sat on the porch, and she looked into his eyes and said, "My son, I know you're in a hurry. But today, could you just listen to me without trying to fix anything? Just listen, like when you were little and sat in my lap?" That touched her son's heart deeply. That day, he learned to listen with his heart. And she finally felt truly heard. This is the beauty of empathetic communication. You don't need grand speeches. Sometimes it's just holding a steady gaze, showing you're fully there. It's a gesture, a respectful silence, a deep breath before responding. And above all, a sincere intention to understand, not to win the conversation. For those of us who have lived so many stories, empathetic communication is a powerful bridge, because often we carry within us experiences we long to share. Lessons learned through pain, through time, through life. But if those stories are cast into emptiness, without welcome, they're lost. And that hurts. It hurts to feel that the wisdom we hold no longer matters to others. But when someone listens to us with love, that pain turns to relief, to connection, to healing. In this sense, empathy is almost like an invisible hug. You can't see it, but you feel it. It's when someone listens to your story without interrupting, and at the end simply says, "I understand," and nothing else is needed. Because when we're truly understood, something inside us grows still. So, if you want to start practicing this kind of communication, begin with simple gestures. Listen more than you speak. Observe the other person. Notice their pauses. Respect their silences. And when you speak, choose words that welcome, that don't wound. Ask gently instead of accusing. Say, "How are you feeling about this?" Or, "Would you like to tell me more?" And above all, be present. Turn off distractions, look into their eyes, and offer your attention as a gift. Empathetic communication is just that, a gift. A gift that costs nothing but is priceless. A gift that, when we give it to others, also transforms us. Because when we listen with empathy, we too are heard by the universe with more love, more compassion, more life. Silence and presence. Over time, we come to realize that words aren't always the most important part of a conversation. Often, it's in silence where the greatest acts of love reside. For those who have lived long, silence isn't emptiness, it's full of meaning. It can be medicine or a wall, it all depends on the presence that accompanies it. Being silent beside someone, yet with your whole heart there, can be more powerful than 1,000 pieces of advice. Have you ever noticed how good it feels to be near someone who isn't rushing to fill the space with words? Someone who simply knows how to be? That is presence. And in empathetic communication, presence is the soul of everything. Presence isn't just being physically with someone. It's being there with your mind and heart fully available. It's listening with your eyes, your body, your soul. It's turning off the noise of the world, and sometimes even the noise in your own head, to connect with the present moment, with what's being shared in that conversation, in that glance, in that gesture. There's a profound difference between hearing and being present. You can hear someone while simultaneously thinking about 1,000 other things. What you'll say next, what you need to resolve, some distant problem. But when you're truly present, the other person feels it. They relax, they open up. They sense they're safe in that shared space. I remember a man named Mr. Augusto, who used to visit his wife every day in a nursing home. She no longer remembered him. Her memory had faded almost completely. Still, he went. He sat beside her, held her hand, and stayed silent. Sometimes he'd say a few words, other times not at all. But he was there, with his body, with his soul, present. And you know what's most beautiful? Even without memory, she smiled when she saw him. Her body recognized that silent presence. That was love in its purest form. Love that doesn't need many words, just truth. Presence is a kind of listening that doesn't need sound. It's when the other person feels that you're fully there, available. And that's what we need in conversations that heal, people willing to simply be. But in practice, how do we cultivate this presence? Start with something simple. When you're talking to someone, turn off or move away from distractions. Put your phone aside, turn off the TV, lower the noise. Take a deep breath. Focus on the person in front of you. Look them in the eyes. Listen without interrupting. Let them speak at their own pace. And if there's silence, don't rush to fill it. Let it exist. Many people fear silence as if it were a sign of discomfort. But in truth, it can be sacred space. A moment for the other person to gather their thoughts. A pause that allows deep feelings to find the courage to emerge. Silence is a breath for the soul. Presence also means reading between the lines. Sensing when pain is disguised behind a smile, or exhaustion hides in a quick phrase. It's paying attention not just to what's said, but how it's said. It's having the sensitivity to notice what wasn't spoken and still being there, offering comfort. And this is especially true for those of us in our later years. Sometimes we feel pushed aside, like our words no longer hold the same weight. Like everyone else is always in a hurry. And then loneliness creeps in. But we can also offer our presence as a gift. We can be the calm harbor where younger souls find shelter. We can teach by example that being with someone is more than talking. It's sharing soul time with soul. Being present is an act of love. And often, the greatest gift you can give someone is simply to be there. To be there with an open heart, an attentive ear, a quiet soul listening more than judging. welcoming more than explaining. Because in the end, when a conversation is real, silence isn't absence. It's connection. And in that shared silence, the deepest bonds are formed, the truest understandings emerge, and the peace we long for is found, not in haste, not in anxiety, but in the calm of those who've learned that what heals most is presence. Body, language, and tone of voice. When we talk about empathetic communication, many people immediately think of words, what to say, how to say it. But the truth is, much of what we communicate isn't spoken. Our body speaks. Our face speaks. The way we look, the way we sit, the tone we use when we say, "I'm fine," it all conveys something. And what's most interesting is that often, the other person picks up on these messages more strongly than any words we could say. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone said everything was fine, but their arms were crossed, their gaze was distant, and their tone was clipped? You could feel it instantly. Something wasn't being said. The body reveals. The body is honest. It speaks even when the mouth tries to hide. So if we want to cultivate conversations that soothe, we must pay attention not just to our words, but to our physical presence. How are we showing up for the other person? Is our body open, welcoming? Or are we defensive, tense, rushed? An open posture, for example, communicates receptivity. When we uncross our arms, relax our shoulders, lean slightly toward the other person, we show that we're there, available. No need for grand gestures, just small ones. A gentle tilt of the head, a steady but soft gaze, a slight smile in the eyes. All of this says, "I'm with you now, I'm here." And tone of voice. Tone of voice is like the music of our soul. It can be as calm as a stream or as harsh as thunder. You can say, "I understand you," with warmth, and those words can comfort someone's heart. But say the same words impatiently, and they create distance. It's not just what you say. It's how, over time, we learn to listen for these nuances. I remember Mrs. Esther, a very wise woman who spoke to her grandchildren so gently that even when she corrected them, they didn't feel scolded. They felt cared for. One day, I asked her how she did it. She replied, "I speak as if offering an embrace, not as if giving an order." That stayed with me. To speak as if offering an embrace, that's what empathy does. It turns our tone into a hug. It's not about having the perfect voice. It's about having loving intention. When we speak calmly, with pauses, with softness, we're saying, without words, that we respect the other, that we don't want to hurt, that we want to understand. Too often, especially with younger people, we forget this. The rush, the stress, the generational gap, all of it affects how we express ourselves. But if we take a deep breath before responding, if we choose our words carefully and speak in a steady tone, even difficult topics can be approached with grace. And the opposite is also true. When someone speaks to us in a harsh tone or with closed off body language, we instinctively put up defenses. We stop listening, we build walls. That's why, in many homes, communication breaks down, not because of the content of the conversation, but because of how it happens. So if you want to create a space where others feel safe to open up, start with your body. Be fully there, breathe. Relax, look them in the eyes, and use your voice as if building a bridge, even if your words are simple, even if you don't have answers. The way you speak can heal. It's beautiful to realize that even as the years pass, we can still soften our tone, make our gestures gentler, turn our words into seeds of understanding. And more than that, we can teach by example. Many younger people have never learned to listen with empathy. But when they see you speaking with kindness, looking at them with care, responding with respect, they notice. And slowly, something inside them begins to change. Body language, tone of voice. They're the silent instruments of empathy. When used well, they create harmony between people. And that harmony turns an ordinary conversation into a true connection. So the next time you talk to someone, remember, more than convincing, more than being right, what matters is creating a safe space. A space where the other person feels free to be themselves. And that space begins with you, in your gesture, in your gaze, in your voice that welcomes like an old, familiar embrace. Reflecting to be understood. Over time, we come to realize that being understood is one of our deepest human needs. At some point, all of us long for someone to truly see us, not just hear our words, but grasp what we feel. But for that to happen, for our words to truly find a welcoming space, something essential is needed. Reflection before speaking, a moment to pause, to breathe, and to ask ourselves, what do I really want to communicate? Sometimes we speak in haste, caught in the heat of emotion, and what comes out isn't exactly what we feel, just what we manage to express in the moment. Then, the person on the other end gets confused, defensive, or withdraws. The conversation becomes a disconnect. But when we take a small pause before responding, or even before starting an important dialogue, we create space for awareness. And awareness is the birthplace of empathy. Reflecting to be understood doesn't mean rehearsing polished or sophisticated words. It means listening to yourself with care. Asking, what am I feeling right now? What moved me? What bothered me? And what do I truly want the other person to understand about me? This simple practice can completely transform the tone and direction of a conversation. I remember a story about an elderly man named Pedro who lived with his son and daughter-in-law after losing his wife. He missed the small gestures that once filled his days: breakfast conversations, the smell of cake in the afternoon, a hand that touched his without hurry. But instead of expressing his longing with tenderness, he began complaining about everything: the noise in the house, the food, the lack of attention. The atmosphere grew tense. Conversations became distant. Then, one quiet afternoon, he went to his room, sat on the edge of the bed, and reflected. What am I really wanting? What am I trying to say with all this grumbling? And then it hit him. He just wanted to feel like he belonged. He wanted to be seen. He felt invisible, as if his presence was a burden. The next day, he gently called his son and said, with tears in his eyes, "Son, I don't mean to criticize you. I just miss being remembered, being looked at." And in that moment, everything changed. His son was moved. His daughter-in-law understood. Those simple words, born from reflection, opened a new space for dialogue. This is what happens when we speak with intention and awareness. The other person listens more openly because they sense sincerity. It's not an attack, not a demand. It's vulnerability. And when vulnerability is met with care, connection blossoms. For those in their later years, this skill is especially valuable. Often, we carry old silences, unspoken pains, hurts held onto for decades. But we don't have to pour everything out at once. Nor do we need harsh words to be heard. We can choose to express ourselves calmly, with maturity and honesty. And for that, we must think before we speak, feel before we judge. Above all, we must seek to build bridges, not walls. A helpful practice is writing down what you want to say before speaking. In a notebook, on a scrap of paper. Sometimes, putting feelings into words clarifies the mind and heart. Other times, a quiet walk, a moment of prayer, or meditation is enough. The key is giving yourself inner space so your words come from the soul, not as an impulsive reaction. And if even after reflecting, you feel misunderstood, don't be discouraged. Sometimes the other person needs time. Other times, they're too wounded themselves to listen with an open heart. But remember, every time you express yourself with truth and empathy, you plant a seed. And that seed, sooner or later, blooms. Maybe in a gesture, a returned word, a lighter silence. Reflecting before speaking is a gift we give ourselves and others. It's a choice of maturity, of someone who understands that poorly chosen words can wound, but the right words can heal, because deep down we all want the same thing: to be understood, welcomed, respected, and that starts within us. When we listen to ourselves with kindness, we learn to speak with love. How to validate someone's feelings. Have you ever been in a situation where you shared something important, opened your heart, and the response you got was, "Oh, but you shouldn't feel that way," or "You're exaggerating"? Even unintentional, these kinds of replies have a profound effect. They silence us. They make us feel like our emotions don't belong, that what we feel isn't legitimate. And little by little, we withdraw, stop sharing. That's why learning to validate someone's feelings is such a precious and healing act. Validation isn't about agreeing with everything. It's not saying the other person is right in everything they feel or do. It's something deeper and more human, acknowledging their right to feel what they feel. It's saying, even without words, "I hear you, I see your pain, I'm here." In practice, this can happen in simple ways. When someone confides they're exhausted, for example, instead of replying, "Well, others have it much worse," you might say, "I can imagine how hard this must be for you." Do you see the difference? Instead of minimizing, you hold space. Instead of comparing, you offer understanding. Validating someone's feelings gives them permission to be human. And we all need that, including ourselves. In our later years, it's common to feel things others might not grasp: nostalgia for a time that won't return, grief over a changing body, fear of being forgotten. And when those feelings are dismissed as dramatic, silly, or overreacting, it hurts, quietly but deeply. Now, imagine how healing it is to hear someone say, "It's natural to feel that," or "It makes sense you'd feel this way." These small phrases carry empathy, respect, and presence. They don't fix everything, of course, but they soothe the heart. And often, that's enough to help us move forward with more ease. I remember Donna Alzira, who once confided in her grandson that she feared being a burden to the family. Instead of dismissing her feelings or trying to fix her, he simply said, "Grandma, I can't imagine how this must feel for you, but I'm here and I want to understand." And she cried. Not from sadness, but relief. Because in that moment, she felt her pain had been heard. She felt allowed to be human, to be fragile. That's the magic of validation. It doesn't demand solutions. It doesn't require quick answers. It only asks for real listening, a heart willing to be present. Validating someone's feelings is saying, "You're not alone in this." And sometimes, that's all the other person needs. Often we rush to cheer someone up, to solve things, to look on the bright side. But before inviting hope, we must acknowledge their pain. It's like tending to a plant. Before exposing it to sunlight, you water it, care for its roots. Feelings have roots too, and they need tending with time, gentleness, patience. And remember, this applies to ourselves too. Validating our own feelings is an act of self-love. Sometimes we feel ashamed for being sad, angry, or afraid. But we're human. Every feeling is a legitimate expression of our experience. Denying what we feel is like covering a wound. It stays hidden, still hurting. But when we face it, accept its existence, that's the first step toward healing. So, if you want conversations that soothe, heal, and connect, start practicing validation. Listen without correcting. Hold space without trying to change. Acknowledge without judging. Offer a sincere "I understand," or even a silence filled with presence. To validate is to love with your ears, to embrace with your words. And when that happens, the other person blossoms. Because with you, they know they can simply be. After all we've reflected on together, you may have realized that speaking with love isn't about saying the right words, but about being present. being someone who offers calm instead of haste, who listens with the heart, not just the ears, who doesn't try to win a conversation, but rather to build a space where everyone can exist, feel, and breathe in peace. The empathetic communication we've spoken so much about here isn't a technique, it's a way of living. It's a way of relating to others as if they were sacred mirrors, where another's pain touches me, and where my listening can heal. And this wisdom, so needed, often resides in those who have lived long lives, in those who have wept, forgiven, and started anew, in those who, like you, carry not just years in their life, but whole lives within those years. If at any point in this video you felt your heart stir, if you remembered someone with whom you'd like to share a gentler conversation, if you realize that you too need to be heard with more love, know this: that's already the beginning of transformation. Because everything changes when we change how we listen. And everything blossoms when we learn to speak with more truth, more kindness, more presence. So now, I invite you to take part in this on an even deeper level. If this message spoke to your soul, leave a comment below sharing what touched you most today. Is there someone with whom you'd like to practice more empathetic conversations? Your words may inspire others. And we here will listen to you with care, like this video if it brought you peace or hope. It may seem simple, but every like helps. This message reach more hearts in need of warmth. And if you're not yet part of our community, subscribe to the channel. Here, every week, we build bridges, not walls. Here, we honor the wisdom of maturity and cultivate conversations that heal, strengthen, and bring us closer. And remember, you have immense worth. Your listening is a gift. Your presence, a balm. Keep walking this path with us. Keep being light where there is haste. Keep offering conversations that soothe, because the world, now more than ever, needs this. And you already have everything it takes to be that transformative presence. Until we meet again, may your words be gentle and your listening sacred.